The courtroom froze. He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You're useless," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. The insult landed like a slap echoing through the room. Judge Judy didn't flinch. She simply adjusted her glasses, studying him as if measuring the cost of his words. And in that silence, and the kind that warns of a storm, justice began to turn its gaze. The laughter came first. Sharp. Careless, echoing off the courtroom walls like it owned the air. Tyler strolled in behind his friends, sunglasses perched on his head, hoodie half-zipped, the swagger of someone who'd never been told no. He dropped into his seat with a grin that dared anyone to challenge him. Judge Judy's eyes tracked him quietly from behind the bench. The camera would have caught that stillness, the calm before impact. She didn't need to speak yet. Her silence was already doing the talking. Across the room, Evans sat alone at the plaintiff's table, a thin folder clutched so tight his knuckles had gone white. He looked smaller than his age, maybe 17, maybe 18, but the weight in his eyes made him older. His mother sat a few rows back, whispering prayers into her clasped hands. The bailiff called order, and the laughter from Tyler's corner didn't stop right away. He nudged his friend, smirking. "Relax, man, it's just TV." The bailiff shot him a look that could have frozen smoke, and the room quieted almost. Judge Judy straightened the papers before her. The sound, crisp, deliberate, cut through the leftover laughter like a blade through air. Her tone was mild, polite, but her words had teeth. "Mr. Tyler, do you understand why you're here today?" Tyler leaned back in his chair, one leg draped over the other, arms crossed. "Yeah," he said. "Because this guy can't take a joke." He nodded toward Evan, who looked down immediately, eyes fixed on the folder, as if hiding behind paper could make arrogance disappear. A faint murmur spread through the audience, not outrage, not yet, just disbelief. Judge Judy waited, expression unchanged. Then, with a calmness that almost sounded like curiosity, she asked, "And what was the joke?" Tyler shrugged. "Just some paint. On his car. Washed off in a day." He grinned. "No big deal." Judy's eyes didn't move. "Did you pay for the paint? Or for the day?" The grin faltered for half a second. Evan's voice finally broke the silence, small, uncertain, but steady. "It wasn't just paint. He wrote things. On the hood. About me." His hand shook as he opened the folder. Inside, glossy photos slid forward, red spray paint spelling out words that didn't belong on anyone's car. The audience leaned forward. Tyler's friends whispered, uncomfortable now. But Tyler only rolled his eyes. "Come on, man." Everyone laughed. "He's being dramatic." Judy's expression didn't shift, not once. Her next words were soft, surgical. "You're enjoying yourself, aren't you?" Tyler shrugged again, feigning boredom. "Kind of. I mean, it's not like you can do anything real here." A ripple of shock passed through the room. Even the cameraman hesitated. Judy leaned forward slightly, her voice low, deliberate. "The kind that slices arrogance from within. Let's see if you still think I'm useless when we're done." The air turned still. No laughter now, just the sound of her pen tapping once against the desk. The gavel hadn't even struck yet, but everyone in that room knew something had just changed. The tension didn't fade, it thickened. Like humidity before a thunderstorm. Tyler leaned back again, smirk returning, trying to reclaim control. "Useless," he muttered under his breath. The word wasn't loud, but in that silence it was deafening. Judge Judy didn't flinch. Her gaze shifted to the bailiff. "Could you please repeat what Mr. Tyler just said?" The bailiff's tone carried the weight of authority. "He said you're useless, Your Honor." A soft gasp rolled through the audience like a wave. Tyler's friends chuckled nervously, one whispering, "Man, stop!" But Tyler raised a hand. Basking in the attention, Judy adjusted her glasses. "Slow, deliberate, fascinating," she said. "Do you speak to every adult this way, or am I special?" Tyler shrugged, lips twisting. "Depends who's talking to me like they're my mom." The camera would have cut to Evan, eyes wide, disbelief and hurt mixing on his face. This wasn't the arrogance of confidence. It was the arrogance of insecurity. Loud, brittle, desperate to be seen, Judge Judy's tone stayed steady. "So you enjoy mocking people you hurt and insulting authority. Quite the resume for a 19-year-old, Tyler chuckled. "Look, lady, the gavel hit once, crack, lady." Judy echoed, voice soft but razor-edged. "Try again." He hesitated, smirk faltering for just a heartbeat. Then he laughed again, the sound forced now, a mask slipping. "Fine, Your Honor, sorry. Happy?" Judy's eyes didn't soften, not even close. "Let's move on." She turned to Evan. "You mentioned words written on your car. Were there threats?" Evan nodded faintly. "He called me names, said I should disappear. It wasn't just one time." Judy's pen stopped moving. "Not one time." Evan shook his head. "He's been doing it since last year." The sound of shifting seats echoed. Even the audience was uncomfortable now. Tyler crossed his arms, forcing a scoff. "He's exaggerating. People joke around all the time." Judy didn't look up. "Joking requires consent, Mr. Tyler. Without it, it's cruelty." She finally raised her gaze, eyes like mirrors reflecting nothing but truth. "And cruelty isn't funny. It's cowardly." Tyler's lips parted, mad to argue, to deflect, but nothing came out. For the first time, silence from him felt louder than his arrogance ever had. Evan's mother shifted in the audience, whispering a quiet thank you under her breath. Unheard but deeply felt. Judy leaned back, folding her hands. "Tell me, Mr. Tyler, did you find this case amusing before you arrived today?" Tyler hesitated, then forced a shrug. "A little. And do you still?" He glanced toward the cameras, forcing another smirk. "Guess that depends on how long this takes," the crowd murmured. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened. Judy smiled faintly, but it wasn't amusement. It was the kind of smile that comes before thunder. "I see. Then let's not waste time." She opened a thick manila folder. The rustle of paper filled the room like whispers from the past. Her brow furrowed, slightly, almost imperceptibly, but enough for the tension to spike again. "Mr. Tyler," she said, voice calm as still water, "why is your name already on this police report?" Tyler's smirk froze. One of his friends swallowed hard. Evan looked up, confused, and he hadn't seen that document before. The room held its breath. Judy waited, her eyes steady, her expression unreadable. For the first time, Tyler didn't have a joke ready. The silence was his answer. For a moment, the air did not move. Even the cameras seemed hesitant, unsure whether to zoom in or pull back. Tyler's mouth opened, but the sound that came out wasn't words. It was hesitation disguised as laughter. There must be a mix-up," he said, tone forced casual. "Probably another Tyler." Judge Judy didn't blink. Her pen rested just above the page, motionless. "Another Tyler," she repeated, like testing the sound of the lie. "Same last name, same street, same date of birth?" Tyler's eyes darted toward the folder, as if looking at it could change what was written. He leaned forward, elbows on the table now, defensive, smaller. "You can't just assume that's me." "I'm not assuming anything," Judy replied evenly. "The police did," the audience murmured. The echo felt like a storm gathering behind polite silence. Evan looked up from his seat, surprise mingled with a flicker of vindication. He didn't smile. He just stared, quietly watching the boy who had once chased him down school halls finally run out of space to hide. Judge Judy turned one page slowly. "This report," she said, "details an incident of property damage, spray paint on a locker, same handwriting as the words on your classmate's car, same signature in the lower right corner." She paused. "Are your initials TM?" Tyler's jaw flexed. He looked toward his friends, searching for backup. None of them met his eyes. Judy's voice softened, but her words didn't. "Would you like to add perjury to your record today?" He slouched back, muttering under his breath, "This is ridiculous." Then louder, almost defiant, "They never proved it was me." Her reply came with surgical precision. "They never had to. You proved it just now." The courtroom went quiet again, the kind of quiet that vibrates. Evan's mother spoke softly from the second row, unable to hold back anymore. "Your Honor, he's been doing this for months. To Evan, to other boys. No one stopped him." Her voice cracked mid-sentence. "He enjoys it." Tyler's head snapped toward her. "You don't even know me." The outburst echoed, raw, defensive, scared. Judy didn't move, but the bailiff took a single step forward. The message was clear. One more interruption and he'd be standing alone. Judy waited until the echo of his voice dissolved. Then, in a tone so calm it felt like a blade wrapped in velvet, she said, "You are very loud, Mr. Tyler, for someone running out of things to say." The smirk was gone now. Only breathing and fast, shallow, uneven. Evan didn't look triumphant. He just looked tired. like this was the moment he'd been waiting for. But it did not feel like victory. Judy set down the report, folded her hands, and looked directly at Tyler. "So this wasn't a prank," she said quietly. "It was a pattern." The words hung in the air like a verdict yet to be written. The crowd murmured again, not laughter this time, just the uneasy sound of realization. Tyler stared down at the desk, fingers drumming nervously, the rhythm of guilt pretending to be patience. The gavel hit once, light but final. "Bailiff," Judy said, "bring me the video submission that came with this report." The audience straightened. Tyler froze. Even Judy's voice shifted, and slower now, almost cold. "Let us see," she continued, "what truth looks like when it's caught on camera." The bailiff returned with a small USB drive in hand, evidence sealed in quiet certainty. He plugged it into the court's monitor, and the screen flickered to life. A hum filled the air, the sound of anticipation mixed with dread. "Play it," Judge Judy said simply. Tyler's chair creaked as he shifted, trying to appear unconcerned. But his hands betrayed him, fingers tapping, stopping, tapping again. His eyes darted toward his friends, seeking reassurance that no longer existed. The first frame appeared, a parking lot at night, washed in grainy light. Then, like a ghost emerging from static, there he was. Tyler, laughing, spray can in hand. The soundless footage played like a silent confession. He scrawled words across Evan's car, ugly, deliberate. Behind him, his friends filmed with their phones, their faces half covered in shadows. One of them shouted something, inaudible, but the laughter was clear. The audience went still. No one breathed. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights felt louder than human sound. Tyler's face drained of color. That's, he started, then stopped. His voice cracked under the weight of proof. "That's old footage. From months ago." Judy didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. Her eyes stayed on the screen, detached, clinical, like watching truth unfold in slow motion. Then the video ended with one final frame, Tyler turning toward the camera, saying words that made the courtroom collectively flinch. The clerk replayed it. The audio, though faint, was unmistakable. "He deserves it." Those 3 words hit harder than any gavel. Judy closed her file. Silence fell, thick and immovable. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, too calm. "Would you like to explain why you were laughing while destroying someone else's property, Mr. Tyler?" He stammered. It was just a joke." Judy cut in softly. "Jokes don't end in police reports." The boy's confidence began to fracture. His shoulders sank. His words came faster, less coherent. "It was supposed to be funny." "Everyone said it was funny." "Everyone?" Judy asked. "Or just the people afraid of you?" He blinked, stunned by the question, by its precision. For the first time he had no ready insult, no weaponized grin. Just silence. Evan looked down at his hands, the faint tremor returning. But this time he wasn't afraid. He was remembering every moment Tyler's laughter had replaced his own voice. The courtroom had shifted. The bully was no longer the center of the story. Truth was, Judy leaned forward slightly. Her voice was quiet, but her words cut through the air like thin ice cracking. "You said I was useless, but I see now that you confuse kindness for weakness." Tyler's breath hitched. "You just proved my point," she continued. "You're not fearless. You're careless." The cameras caught it, the subtle tremor at the corner of his mouth, the twitch of his hand against the table. Confidence had finally abandoned him. Judy looked toward the clerk. "Leave the video paused on that frame, the one where he's laughing." The image froze. Tyler mid-laugh, spray can still in hand, arrogance immortalized. Judy's tone was almost reflective. "It's strange," she said quietly. "The things people think look like power, until the light hits them." The gavel struck once, not to end the case, but to punctuate the silence. Everyone jumped at the sound. When the echo faded, Judy spoke again, her eyes still on Tyler. "Now," she said, "let us hear what your explanation sounds like without laughter." The smirk was gone. Only fear remained, raw, visible, and entirely human. The screen went dark, but the silence it left behind wasn't empty. It was judgment itself. Every eye in the courtroom stayed on Tyler, even though the video had stopped. He looked smaller now, framed against a truth he couldn't laugh away. I didn't mean it like that," he muttered. His voice, once loud and cutting, had thinned to almost nothing. Judge Judy folded her hands, gaze steady. Mean what, exactly? He hesitated. The whole thing, the paint, the video. It wasn't supposed to go that far. He jerked a thumb toward his friends in the back row. They dared me to do it, the audience murmured, unimpressed. Even his friends shifted uncomfortably, one of them lowering his head, avoiding the cameras. Judy leaned back, her tone surgical. So you're saying you are easily influenced? You commit crimes for applause? Tyler frowned. No, it's not like that. Then explain what it is like. He tried again, words tumbling over each other. I was trying to fit in, okay? Everyone thought Evan was weird, so you decided to make him a target? She interrupted, voice calm but sharp. That's your definition of fitting in? Tyler's jaw clenched. He hated being interrupted. He hated not being in control. Look, I said I was sorry. He snapped. The gavel struck once. No, Judy said, voice low but commanding. Oh, you didn't, he blinked. What? You said you were sorry for being caught. Not for what you did. The audience reacted with a soft gasp. The tension was electric, alive. Even Evan lifted his eyes, watching Judy as though she were saying what he'd wished someone had said years ago. Tyler's bravado wavered. You don't get it. It was just a stupid moment. People overreacted. Judy tilted her head slightly. You mean the people you hurt? He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Her gaze didn't break. You keep talking about how this looks. Not once have you talked about what it felt like for him. A beat of silence, heavy, honest. For the first time, Tyler's eyes flickered toward Evan. The boy sat motionless, expression unreadable, the look of someone who had been waiting to be heard. Not avenged. Tyler looked away almost instantly, guilt flickering like static beneath his skin. Judy's tone softened, not kind but precise. Arrogance often starts as fear, Mr. Tyler, but fear doesn't excuse cruelty. She let the words breathe. Do you know what accountability means? He said nothing. It means you stop looking for someone else to hold the blame, she continued. It means your name on that report doesn't belong to a mix-up. It belongs to you. He swallowed hard. His voice cracked as he whispered, They told me it was just for fun. They always do, she said quietly. But the person holding the spray can wasn't them. The room felt colder now. The audience leaned forward, drawn into the slow dissection of ego. Evan's mother dabbed her eyes. Even the bailiff's stern expression softened slightly. Judy closed the folder, the click echoing like a lock turning. Enough excuses. It is time for truth. She looked toward the bailiff. Bring in the witness. Tyler's head snapped up. What witness? Judy's tone remained flat. Someone who was there that night. Someone who seems ready to tell the truth you are still running from. Tyler's pulse quickened, color draining from his face. Wait, who is it? The side door opened. Footsteps echoed. Every eye turned as a familiar figure stepped into the light, nervous but resolute. Mr. Marcus Taylor, the bailiff announced. Tyler's friend, the one who filmed it. Tyler's breath hitched audibly. Even the cameras seemed to pause, waiting. Judy looked back at him. Let us hear, she said calmly, from someone who knows your dare better than you do. The side door creaked open. The sound, small, metallic, somehow louder than the gavel itself. Marcus stepped into the room, shoulders hunched, eyes down. He was about Tyler's age, but his walk carried the weight of guilt. Raise your right hand, the bailiff instructed. Marcus complied, voice trembling as he swore to tell the truth. Judge Judy nodded once. You may be seated. Tyler leaned forward, voice low and panicked. What the hell are you doing here, man? Marcus didn't look at him. The camera panned to Judy, her expression unreadable, her tone measured. Mr. Marcus Taylor, she said, you were present the night of the incident. Marcus nodded. Yes, Your Honor. And you recorded the video that was submitted as evidence? Another nod. Yes. Tell this court, she continued, her voice soft but piercing, who was holding the spray can. Marcus's lips parted, breath shallow. He looked briefly at Tyler, his former friend, who now stared back with silent fury. The pause stretched long enough to make the audience lean in. Then Marcus exhaled. It was Tyler. The words hit the air like a dropped stone in still water. No shouting, no denial, just ripples of quiet realization spreading across every face in the courtroom. Tyler's voice rose an octave. He's lying. He's just trying to save himself. He stood up halfway, but the bailiff moved a single step that made him freeze mid-motion. Judge Judy's gaze was steady. "Sit down, Mr. Tyler." He obeyed, chest heaving. She turned back to Marcus. "You said he was dared." "Who dared him?" Marcus shook his head. "No one did. He came up with it." He said, "Let's make Evan pay for being a loser." We told him it was stupid, but he laughed, said it'd be funny on TikTok. The audience gasped, some in disbelief, others in disgust. Tyler's face flushed red. "So you said you deleted that video?" Marcus's reply was almost a whisper. "I did, but I kept a copy, because I knew this day would come." For a long beat, no one spoke. Only the sound of the fluorescent hum returned, the courtroom's constant heartbeat. Judge Judy's voice, when it came, was soft but lethal. "Mr. Tyler, do you realize your friend just did for you what you should have done for yourself?" Tyler blinked, confusion blending with anger. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," she said, "he told the truth." The camera closed in on Tyler's face. No smirk now, no mask. Just the raw panic of a boy realizing the walls weren't closing in because of others. They were closing in because of him. Judy continued, tone lower, slower, deliberate. "You stood in this courtroom, insulted me, mocked the victim, laughed at the evidence, and now your own witness has told the truth you refuse to face." Tyler looked to Marcus, voice trembling. "Why'd you do this to me?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Because you stopped being someone I could defend." The silence that followed was brutal, the kind that breaks rather than bends. Judge Judy looked at Tyler with that disarming calm again, the kind that comes just before judgment. "If you keep talking," she said, "you'll dig your own grave deeper." Tyler clenched his fists under the table. The boy who had called her useless now looked like someone who could barely stand. The audience was still, watching the transformation unfold, arrogance stripped to the bone. Judy set her pen down gently, a punctuation mark to the entire scene. "This isn't about winning anymore," she said. "This is about learning what losing with dignity looks like." The gavel didn't strike this time. It didn't need to. Her words carried enough finality to echo without help. If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you stay silent or speak up against someone like him? The sound of Marcus's confession still hung in the air like smoke that refused to fade. No one moved. No one dared. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, as if unsure whether to keep rolling or look away. Tyler sat frozen, eyes locked on the table. His hands trembled, fingers twitching against the wood. He looked like someone who'd just realized his reflection was staring back, and it didn't blink. Judge Judy didn't speak for several seconds. When she finally did, her voice was so calm it felt colder than silence. "Mr. Tyler, arrogance is loud. Accountability is quiet. Which one do you think you've been serving today?" He didn't answer. The boy who'd come in laughing now seemed too afraid to breathe wrong. Judy's gaze shifted, not to him this time, but to the gallery. "Mrs. Monroe," she said softly. Tyler's head snapped up. "Wait, what?" From the second row, a woman stirred. His mother. She rose slowly, confusion clouding her expression. "Yes, Your Honor." Judy's tone was measured, but it cut deep. "You are his mother?" "Yes." Her voice shook. I am." Judy nodded once. "Then I'd like to ask you something. When did your son learn that cruelty was a form of confidence?" The question hit harder than a gavel. The audience shifted. Even Marcus lowered his gaze. Mrs. Monroe's lips trembled. I don't know. He's a good kid. He gets caught up with the wrong people." Judy's eyes softened slightly, but her words didn't. "Good people make bad choices," she said. "But bad choices don't excuse cruelty." Tyler looked at his mother, for the first time truly looked. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't meet his eyes. Judy continued, "You raised him to be better than this, so I'll ask again. When did he start confusing strength with dominance?" Tears filled the woman's eyes. "After his father left," she whispered. He changed. I thought it was just anger. I thought it would pass." The courtroom was still. Judy's gaze stayed on her, gentle but unyielding. "Anger doesn't pass," she said. "It learns where to hide." Tyler's throat tightened. "Stop," he murmured, barely audible. She didn't stop. This wasn't cruelty. It was the peeling back of truth, layer by layer. "Your Honor," he tried again. His voice cracked this time. "You don't know what it's like." Judy leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing. "Then tell me." He froze. The invitation was genuine. and that terrified him more than judgment. "Tell me," she repeated, softer now. "What is it like?" He looked down again, the words caught between pride and panic. "I don't know. I hate when people look at me like I'm nothing." Her reply came without hesitation. "So you made someone else feel like nothing, and for a moment that made you feel whole." The courtroom exhaled. No sound. Just a collective breath after too long without one. Judy leaned back in her chair, the light catching the silver edge of her glasses. "This is not about punishment anymore, Mr. Tyler. This is about reflection." He stared at her, eyes glassy but defiant. "You think you're teaching me something?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I know I am." The words hung there, hovering between revelation and reckoning. Tyler's mother sat down quietly, hands covering her mouth. Marcus stared at the floor, guilt heavy in every breath. For a moment, it felt like the entire courtroom was holding its breath alongside him, waiting to see if he'd break or change. He tried to speak again, forcing out a whisper. "I said I was sorry," Judy cut him off gently. "You're not sorry yet, but you will be." The gavel struck once, soft, almost sympathetic, signaling not the end of the hearing, but the start of something else, the unraveling of a boy who finally had to face himself. The gavel's echo faded, but its rhythm lingered inside Tyler's chest like a second heartbeat. He slumped slightly, trying to shrink from the stares burning holes in his back. His mother wept quietly behind him, the sound muffled but inescapable. Judge Judy didn't move for a long moment. Her stillness was unnerving, as though she were letting the silence finish saying what words couldn't. Then, slowly, she reached for a slim folder set aside from the others, one she hadn't opened until now. "I've been patient." "Mr. Tyler," she said, voice steady as stone. "But patience is not permission." Tyler looked up, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" She slid the folder across the bench, letting it land with a soft thud. "This," she said, "is my copy of your record." He frowned. "Record? I don't doubt it. I've never been arrested." "Not arrested," she replied calmly. "Reported. There's a difference." She opened it. The paper crackled like kindling in a fireplace. 3 separate complaints. School property vandalized. 2 filed under unverified perpetrator. The 3rd, your initials signed in the corner of a locker door. Tyler blinked rapidly, color draining from his face. That was years ago." "Exactly," she said. "Years ago. You had time to learn. Instead, you got better at hiding it." The crowd murmured again. Judy's voice didn't rise above it. She let their disbelief carry her words further. "I reviewed those files last night," she continued. "Before I even entered this courtroom, I knew you weren't here for your first mistake." She leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly. "You were here for your last chance to make one." Tyler swallowed hard. He looked toward his mother, but she couldn't meet his eyes. The authority he'd mocked now towered over him like a mirror showing what he'd become. Judy's tone softened, not kind, but measured, almost surgical. "You called me useless. That's what arrogant people say when they meet resistance for the first time. But arrogance," she paused, "is just fear wearing confidence like cheap perfume." The line landed like a verdict. Tyler's lips parted, but nothing came out. Even the audience stopped breathing for a beat. "You think you have power because people laugh with you," Judy continued. "But real power, Mr. Tyler, is being able to look at yourself and still recognize what's broken." Her gaze was steady, piercing through the last of his defenses. "Do you recognize it yet?" He tried to speak, but his throat closed around the words. He shook his head, barely audible. "No? Good," she said. "Then you're finally honest." The gavel tapped once, not to silence but to focus. "I am postponing judgment until I hear one last voice," she announced. The voice that should have been heard before any of this ever happened. Tyler looked up, confused. "What voice?" Judy's reply was quiet, almost compassionate. "The voice of the person you tried to break," the audience murmured. Even Evan looked startled. Judy turned toward him, her tone changing, gentler now, respectful. "Mr. Evan Clark," she said, "you've listened to every excuse, every defense, every insult. Now it's time for us to listen to you." Evan froze. "Me?" "Yes," she said. "You." The boy hesitated, eyes flicking from Tyler to Judy to the silent gallery. "Your voice matters here," she added. It always should have. Tyler sank lower in his seat, the fight draining from his posture. For the first time since he'd entered the room, he looked afraid, Not of consequences, but of what truth would sound like coming from someone he couldn't control. Judy folded her hands. "Take your time, Mr. Clark. This court is listening." The camera would have cut close, a slow pan from Tyler's trembling hand to Evan's tightening jaw. The moment before testimony. The moment before power changed hands forever. Evan rose slowly. The sound of his chair scraping the floor was the loudest thing in the room. He hesitated before standing straight, not out of fear, but because the weight of months of silence had made standing its own act of courage. Judge Judy gave a single nod. "Whenever you're ready." He swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't really know how to talk like this." "That's all right," Judy said. "Just tell the truth. We'll handle the rest." Evan looked down at his hands, then across the table, at Tyler, the boy who had laughed at him, filmed him, painted his name in red on his own car. Tyler's eyes flickered away, unable to hold the gaze. Evan spoke quietly, each word shaking but deliberate. It started as teasing. Then it got meaner. Every day, something new. Online, at school, at lunch. Sometimes they'd block the hallway just to watch me get nervous. The audience stayed still, the kind of silence that aches. He continued. "One day I stopped talking to people. I figured if I stayed invisible, they'd stop." He took a slow breath. They didn't. His mother wiped her eyes quietly from the second row. Evan's voice steadied. "He told everyone I was pathetic. And the worst part was, I started to believe it." Tyler shifted in his seat, staring down at the table. His lips trembled, but he said nothing. Judy didn't speak, not yet. She knew silence was part of justice, too. Evan's voice cracked for the first time. "When I saw what he wrote on my car, I didn't feel angry. I just felt small, like I didn't matter. Like maybe he was right." He looked up now, eyes glassy but unflinching. "But then I came here, and for the first time someone actually made him listen." He turned his gaze on Tyler again, not out of hatred, but clarity. "You called her useless," he said softly, "but she's the only one who ever made you stop." The audience exhaled collectively, quiet gasps and soft murmurs, emotion rippling through the room like waves across glass. Even Judy blinked once, eyes steady but deeper now, the human beneath the robe flickering through. Tyler's breathing quickened. His chin trembled, as if the words themselves had pierced armor he didn't know he still wore. Evan looked back toward Judy. "I don't want revenge. I just want it to stop. For me. For whoever's next." Judy nodded once, slow, deliberate. "It will." The gavel didn't move, but her words felt heavier than any strike. She turned to Tyler. "Do you have anything to say to him?" Tyler looked up, eyes red, words caught in his throat. But Judy raised a hand before he could speak. "Think before you answer," she said, voice quiet but razor sharp. "Because the next thing you say might be the first honest thing you've ever said." The boy stared at her, and then at Evan, torn between the instinct to defend himself and the unfamiliar ache of regret. But before he could choose, Judy leaned forward, her voice carrying the final line like a quiet benediction. "Sometimes, Mr. Tyler, the hardest voice to hear is the one you tried to silence." The courtroom went utterly still, the air electric with unspoken emotion. Every person in the room, even the cameras, seemed to feel the shift. For the first time, justice didn't look angry. It looked still. "Do you think remorse can erase the damage of arrogance, or should accountability always come first?" The room felt heavier now, not with noise but with truth. It hung like mist, settling into the corners of the courtroom. Tyler's breathing had gone shallow, uneven. Evan sat back down quietly, but his words, "You called her useless," still lingered, hovering like a mirror in mid-air. Judge Judy's voice sliced through the silence. "Mr. Tyler, look at me." He didn't. Her tone didn't rise, but it deepened, the way steel deepens when it's forged. "I said look at me." Slowly his head lifted. His eyes met hers, wide, tired, red around the edges. For the first time she saw something new in them. Not defiance, not arrogance, just confusion. The kind that comes when the world finally stops making excuses for you. "Let's go over this again," she said. "You vandalized your classmate's car. You called him names. You laughed while doing it. Then you lied about it. Multiple times." She paused. "Do you understand what that pattern says about you?" Tyler didn't respond. His lips moved, but words failed him. Judy continued, calm but relentless. It says that you care more about image than integrity. That humiliation was your form of entertainment. That truth to you was flexible, until today. The camera would have cut close, Judy's face in half shadow, Tyler's in full light. The visual irony, he had nowhere to hide. Tyler finally whispered, "I didn't mean to ruin his life." Judy leaned forward. "But you did," he winced. "And what's worse," she added softly, "is that you didn't care until someone made you watch yourself." Her words landed with surgical precision. He looked away, jaw trembling. "Why do you care so much anyway?" "It's just a stupid case." Her answer came without hesitation. "Because arrogance like yours doesn't just destroy property, Mr. Tyler. It destroys people." The words hit harder than shouting ever could. The courtroom was dead still. Even the bailiff, usually stoic, glanced up from his post, the weight of that line sinking in. Judy reached into the folder again and lifted a single sheet, the still frame from the video. Tyler's laughing face frozen mid-act, spray can in hand. She slid it across the bench. "Take a good look." He didn't touch it. He just stared. It was his face, but not him anymore. Not the version sitting here unraveling quietly. The version in the picture looked invincible. The one staring at it looked broken. Judy's voice softened. "Do you recognize him?" He swallowed. "I thought I did. And who was he?" His throat tightened. "Someone who didn't think." She nodded. "And now?" He looked up. "Someone who can't stop." That answer, raw, unfiltered, changed the temperature of the room. For the first time his words sounded real. Judy leaned back slightly, eyes never leaving him. "You see, truth has a way of finding its reflection, Mr. Tyler, and when it does, it shatters the image you've been protecting." She paused. "That's the sound of the mirror breaking." He blinked fast, trying to hide the tears forming at the corners of his eyes. Evan looked down, not in triumph, but in quiet understanding. Because in that moment both boys were facing something bigger than guilt, the ache of recognition. Judy closed the folder. Her tone softened even further, not pity but weary compassion. "Remorse is not the same as redemption," she said. "But it's the first time you've stopped lying to yourself." The boy nodded slowly, as though the meaning had to travel through pain to reach him. The silence that followed wasn't tense anymore. It was heavy with possibility. Then Judy spoke again, lower now, more personal. "Tell me, Tyler, when did cruelty start feeling like control?" The question stopped him cold. It wasn't about evidence. It was about the boy behind the behavior. And it cut deeper than anything she'd said before. He looked down again, one tear slipping free, falling soundlessly onto the table. The tear hit the table and spread like ink in water, slow, quiet, impossible to ignore. No one moved. The courtroom that had once been filled with laughter and arrogance now felt like a confessional. Judge Judy didn't speak. She simply waited, letting silence do what interrogation never could. Her patience wasn't strategy anymore. It was empathy wrapped in discipline. Tyler wiped his face with his sleeve, but it didn't stop the shaking. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller than the boy who'd walked in that morning. "I wasn't trying to control anyone," he said. "I just didn't want to feel small." Judy's gaze held steady. "Explain." He took a breath, shallow, trembling. "When I was 12, my dad got arrested. Everyone in the neighborhood saw it. Cops outside the house, sirens, reporters. I remember the sound of the camera shutters. I remember hiding behind the couch." He looked at his hands, ashamed of what they were doing even as he spoke. "People looked at me different after that. Like I was his mistake." The audience was silent, the empathy in the air almost tangible. "So," Judy said softly, "you made someone else your mistake." He nodded, tears streaking down his face now. "Yeah, I guess I did." His mother covered her mouth in the gallery, shaking her head, tears spilling freely. "I thought if I was the loudest," he continued, voice breaking, "if I made people laugh, they wouldn't remember that. They'd forget who my dad was, forget that I was scared." He paused. His next words came out like a confession he'd rehearsed for years, but never dared say aloud. "I thought being mean made me safe." The weight of that truth sank deep. Even Evan's face softened, the anger fading into quiet understanding. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice a whisper edged with gravity. "And did it?" Tyler shook his head. No, it just made me hate myself more. For a long moment, no one spoke. It was as if the whole room, the audience, bailiff, plaintiff, even the cameras, had turned into witnesses not of a trial, but of a truth long overdue. Judy's tone was gentler now, her authority tinged with humanity. Fear has a strange way of disguising itself, she said. Sometimes it wears cruelty, sometimes silence. But it always asks the same question: who are you without it? Tyler looked up, eyes red, expression unguarded. I don't know, he whispered. That, Judy said quietly, is the best answer you've given today. Her words didn't carry punishment, they carried release. For the first time, Tyler didn't look defensive. He looked young. He looked like a boy who had finally run out of places to hide from his own reflection. Evan sat still, absorbing it all. He wasn't forgiving, not yet. But he was seeing the person behind the cruelty for the first time. His gaze softened, not out of pity, but because understanding is heavier than anger. Judy leaned back, exhaling slowly. Her voice, when she spoke again, carried the tone of weary wisdom, the kind that comes only after years of watching people destroy themselves for the illusion of pride. Fear doesn't excuse what you did, she said, but it explains the hole you were trying to fill. And maybe that's the first step toward closing it. The light in the courtroom shifted subtly, softer now, less sterile, the edges of harshness fading into gold. It was the kind of light that comes after a storm, tentative, fragile, but real. Tyler's voice trembled. What happens now? Judy looked at him, not as a judge, but as someone who understood the cost of pretending to be strong. Now, she said, you start telling the truth everywhere else. The gavel didn't strike this time. It didn't need to. The moment itself was the verdict. The silence after his confession wasn't peaceful. It was raw, the kind that fills your lungs but refuses to let you breathe. Tyler sat hunched forward, elbows on the table, face buried in his hands. He wasn't crying loudly, just shaking, a kind of tremor that came from the inside out. His words from before still hung in the air like ghosts. I thought being mean made me safe. Judge Judy didn't speak right away. She gave him time to hear his own silence. When she finally did, her voice was quieter than it had ever been. Do you know what I see right now? He shook his head without looking up. I see a boy, she said, who finally ran out of lies and found the truth waiting for him. The audience was motionless. Even the bailiff's usual stoicism had softened. His eyes flicked briefly toward Tyler's mother, who sat crying silently in the back row. Tyler's voice was hoarse. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just didn't want to feel like him. He gestured vaguely toward nothing, but they all knew what he meant. His father. The ghost of disgrace. I thought if I could make people laugh, they'd forget what kind of family I came from. Judy's reply was slow, deliberate. So you built power out of pain. He looked up at her then, eyes swollen, exhausted, pleading for a mercy he didn't know how to ask for. Is that unforgivable? Judy's gaze was steady. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. It belongs to the people you took from. But redemption, she paused. Redemption starts when you stop performing and start repairing. The boy nodded faintly, tears slipping freely now. Evan shifted slightly in his seat, as if absorbing the words in real time. The courtroom felt different now, less like a stage, more like a sanctuary. The fluorescent light that had once seemed harsh now fell softer. Like morning sunlight on the worn wood of the bench, Tyler's mother whispered, "Thank you," though it wasn't clear who she meant, Judy, Marcus, or the universe. Judge Judy finally leaned back, voice still calm but with a new edge of resolve. "I believe in consequences," she said, "but I also believe in lessons that last longer than punishments." She turned to the clerk. "Prepare a written statement order." The clerk nodded. Pens moved. The scratch of ink against paper sounded like finality. Judy continued, "Mr. Tyler, you will compensate Mr. Clark for the damages, of course. But that's not enough." He looked up, surprised, maybe even hopeful. "What else?" "You're going to use that same voice you used to humiliate," she said, "to educate. You'll speak to your school about accountability, about fear, about what happens when arrogance replaces empathy." The audience murmured softly. It wasn't ridicule, it was approval, the kind that vibrated quietly through human hearts that had seen something change before their eyes. Tyler blinked, stunned. "You want me to talk about what I did?" "I want you to own it," she said. Loudly, publicly, not as punishment, but as practice. He hesitated, thinking. Then finally he nodded. "I can do that." Judy's gaze softened slightly. "Then maybe for the first time you're not pretending." The boy took a slow breath, chest rising with the first calm inhale since the trial began. The weight hadn't vanished, but it had changed shape. Evan watched quietly. His eyes held something that looked a lot like understanding. Not forgiveness yet, but the beginning of it. Even Marcus leaned forward slightly, guilt etched into his posture. The gavel rested in Judy's hand, unmoving. Her voice lowered to almost a whisper. "You wanted power, Mr. Tyler. Now you'll learn what real power feels like, the kind that lifts, not destroys." The boy nodded again, barely able to meet her gaze. "I'll do it," he said softly. Judy gave one final nod, almost imperceptible but enough to end the moment. Then she set the gavel down gently, not striking it, not yet. "Good," she said. "Then let's make it official." The echo of her words carried through the courtroom like a quiet promise. And for the first time no one felt the urge to speak, because silence had finally done its job. The courtroom was silent except for the scratch of the clerk's pen. Outside, faint city sounds pressed against the walls. Car horns. Footsteps, life continuing. But inside, time had slowed to reverence. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses and looked at Tyler. The light from above caught the tear stains on his cheeks, turning them into proof that something inside him had finally cracked open. "Mr. Tyler," she began, her tone calm but commanding, "this court finds you responsible for property damage, harassment and emotional distress. You will pay restitution in full to Mr. Clark for all expenses related to the vandalism." He nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor. But that," she said, leaning forward, "is not your sentence. That is the bare minimum." The audience stirred. Even Evan's mother lifted her head slightly, listening. Judy continued, voice steady and low. "True consequence is not what others make you suffer. It's what you choose to carry forward. You wanted attention when you did harm. Now you'll earn attention by repairing it." She motioned to the clerk. "Read the additional order." The clerk's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Mr. Tyler Monroe will issue a formal written apology to Mr. Evan Clark, to be delivered publicly at his school assembly. He will also record a statement on the subject of accountability and empathy, to be used in the district's anti-bullying program." Tyler blinked, stunned. "You mean people will see it?" Judy nodded. "They should. The world saw your cruelty. It deserves to see your growth." He hesitated, shame flickering in his expression. "What if they don't believe me?" "Then," she said softly, "you keep showing them until they do." The audience murmured approval, a ripple of understanding. Marcus exhaled quietly, as if relieved that something right was finally happening. Evan sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on Judy. She turned to him gently. "Mr. Clark, this isn't just for him. It's for you too. Because justice isn't about watching someone fall. It's about making sure you can rise." Evan nodded slowly. "I think I understand." Judy gave a small nod back and subtle, almost maternal. "You've shown remarkable courage today. Don't let the world make you smaller again." The bailiff shifted, folding his arms across his chest, the posture of someone silently approving. Judy turned back to Tyler. "When you stand in front of your classmates, don't perform. Don't pretend. Just tell them the truth, that fear made you cruel and honesty made you human again." Tyler swallowed hard. "I will." Her tone softened, the kind that cuts and comforts all at once. "Good. Then maybe you've already started to change." For the first time, Tyler didn't look down when she spoke. He looked straight ahead, not proud, not defiant, just present. Judy closed the file in front of her with quiet finality. "This," she said, "isn't punishment. It's practice for the kind of man you still have time to become." The audience broke into a quiet murmur of approval, not applause but something purer, belief. Evan's mother reached for her son's hand. He let her. Marcus, still seated in the witness box, whispered under his breath, "She really doesn't play around." Judy caught it. Her lips curved just slightly, not a smile but a knowing flicker. "I don't play," she said. "I restore." The gavel came down once, a single resonant note that felt more like closure than punishment. Tyler flinched, but then breathed out as if that sound had released something inside him. As the echo faded, Judy's gaze found his one last time. "You're dismissed, Mr. Tyler," she said. "But don't mistake that for freedom. Freedom is something you'll earn every day after this." He nodded, voice trembling. "Yes, Your Honor." The boy who had entered the courtroom with a smirk now left it quieter than anyone else. Shoulders low, steps careful, like someone walking through sacred ground. Days later, the video aired. The camera opened on a gymnasium packed with students, chatter echoing, sneakers squeaking on polished floors, the restless sound of youth that never expects consequence. At the podium stood Tyler Monroe. His hands gripped the edges of the lectern like it was the only thing keeping him upright. He wasn't wearing the hoodie this time, just a plain shirt, sleeves rolled up, no disguise. The microphone squeaked when he leaned in. "I used to think," he began softly, "that being loud meant being strong." The crowd stilled. A few whispers died out. He took a breath, eyes moving from face to face. "But it's not. Being loud was just how I hid from what I didn't want to feel." On screen, the video cut briefly to shots from the courtroom. His face mid-confession, Judge Judy's calm eyes, Evan's still expression. Tyler continued, voice trembling but real. "I hurt people to stop feeling small. I made someone's life miserable because I thought it would make mine easier. And I was wrong." He looked down at his notes, then away from them, speaking now without the safety of paper. "I said something awful in court. I called Judge Judy useless." He paused, shaking his head slightly. "But she was the first person who ever made me listen." Silence. Not uncomfortable, reverent. Somewhere in the crowd, a teacher nodded slowly. "I can't undo what I did," he said, "but I can tell you what it costs. It costs your peace, your friends, your self-respect. It costs you your sleep. You think you're winning when people laugh. But what you're really doing is building a wall so high that one day you'll realize you're the only one behind it." He looked directly at the camera, not performing, just facing it. "If you're hurting someone because you think it makes you strong, you're not. You're just scared. Like I was." The video faded to black on that line. For a second, the sound of applause was faint, hesitant, then real. Not loud, not explosive, just honest. Back in the courtroom, Judge Judy sat at her desk, the faint glow of the recording reflected in her glasses as she watched. The corners of her mouth softened, just enough to suggest pride without sentimentality. The bailiff entered quietly, a folder in hand. "It aired." "The school's posting it everywhere." Judy nodded. "Good. Maybe someone watching will think twice before calling cruelty a joke." He hesitated. "You think he'll keep changing?" Her gaze stayed fixed on the frozen last frame. Tyler's eyes raw but steady. "If he doesn't," she said, "then my job was a performance. But if he does, then it was purpose." The bailiff smiled faintly. "You really don't miss a thing, do you?" She gave a quiet exhale, the kind that sounded like both relief and exhaustion. "Only what people pretend not to see." The courtroom was empty now, benches bare, lights dimmed. Judy stood gathering her notes, the faint sound of rain beginning to tap against the windows. Outside, the world went on, cars passing, lives moving, unaware that inside something had changed. Before leaving, she looked once more at the screen, at the boy who had once called her useless. Her voice, soft and reflective, broke the stillness. "Arrogance fades. Truth doesn't." The rain outside deepened into rhythm. She turned off the monitor, the screen going black, her reflection lingering there for a heartbeat before disappearing. "Before you hear the verdict, do you believe people truly change, or do they just learn to hide who they were?" The courtroom was empty again. The echoes that once carried laughter, anger, and tears had faded into something softer, memory. Judge Judy sat alone at her bench, a single pool of light spilling across her notes. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the glass streaked with silver lines like traces of everything that had been washed clean. The video of Tyler's apology had gone viral overnight, not because of drama, but because of sincerity. Clips of his trembling voice were spreading online, shared with captions like, "He finally owned it." It wasn't the kind of fame he'd chased before. It was quieter, truer. Judy flipped through her papers one last time, though she already knew the outcome. Justice wasn't a paragraph. It was a transformation, and she'd witnessed it, Not perfectly, but honestly. The bailiff entered quietly, holding 2 letters. "These came for you," he said. She took them, her expression unreadable. The first was from Evan Clark. Neat handwriting, steady. He thanked her, not for punishing Tyler, but for listening to him, for reminding him that his voice mattered. The second letter was shorter, clumsier, written in pen pressed too hard into the paper. "Tyler, Your Honor, I don't know how to say thank you without it sounding fake. But I'm trying. I haven't joked about anyone in 2 weeks. My mom says that's a record. I'm working on my speech for the next assembly. This time I won't need a script." Judy folded the letter carefully, her fingers pausing for a moment over the last line. A faint smile flickered. 1 part satisfaction, 1 part relief. The bailiff watched her, waiting. "What now, Judge?" She looked up, eyes tired but bright. "Now?" She tapped the gavel lightly against the bench, a sound more symbolic than procedural. "Now we let silence finish the verdict." He frowned slightly. "Silence?" She nodded. "Yes, because sometimes when words finally run out, that's when learning begins." The clock ticked softly in the background, steady, human, unremarkable. The kind of sound that means life keeps going, even after the lesson ends. Judy stood, collecting her notes, her robe rustling softly as she turned off the courtroom lights. Before stepping out, she looked once more toward the empty witness stand, the place where arrogance had collapsed into truth. Her voice, barely audible, carried the story's final pulse. "Power isn't in the voice that mocks," she said. "It's in the one that finally listens." She reached for the light switch. Darkness filled the room. Only the faint echo of her gavel remained, not a sound of punishment but of peace. Arrogance always collapses beneath truth, and sometimes justice doesn't shout. It teaches.